Let's talk about blame today. And let's talk about the fact that humans and our brains create some, logical steps to make life a little bit easier. But what it does is it causes bias, discrimination, and it makes us blame others incorrectly. So let's take a phrase. Have you ever noticed that when one public school does something bad, all of a sudden, all public schools are terrible, all of them? And let's get a little bit more granular. One teacher makes a mistake. Well, heck, let's even say that one teacher does something criminal, which has absolutely happened in America. You can find examples of teachers, many teachers that have done something illegal or criminal. But then all of a sudden it becomes that all teachers don't care anymore and that all teachers are failing us. I mean, there are 4 million teachers in the United States, give or take. And because of the misdeeds of a few, a couple, or one, all of a sudden we blame them all. Does this seem fair? Does this seem equitable? Well, of course it's not when I say it this way. But it's exactly what happens in our society. And the term, I had to go back and pull up my old site notes and come up with the phrase. I'd forgotten the terminology. I mean, I knew it existed, is that we love to lump groups together and see them as all very similar. And so if you want to do a little bit of outside research on this, look up outgroup homogeneity effect, outgroup. And the basic gist is this is where people see members of other groups, outgroups, as more similar to each other than members of their own group, their in-group. Okay, so as an example, I'm a member of a bicycle race team, and we race bikes, and it's pretty cool. And I see our team as very diverse. I was thinking about that this weekend as I was getting ready for this podcast. I was like, well, what groups am I in? Well, I'm in this group. And I'm like, well, we're very diverse. I mean, we have different age brackets and different religions and different races, and some people have kids and some people have totally different jobs. We all work in something very different. So I see this as all very diverse, but we do have this one commonality of we race bikes. But I do think of the other bike groups that I don't know anything about. Like I'll go to a race, I'll see everybody in one set of jersey, and I'll remember one person in that group with that jersey, their little uniform. And I'll be like, oh, those people aren't very hard riders, or those people are kind of bully and they'll try to elbow you and knock you into a ditch. And I put the whole entire group together, and it is totally wrong of me, but I still do it because it kind of speeds life up a little bit. And I don't want to kind of dig into, why we have so many cognitive shortcuts, like mental shortcuts. You have to have some in your life or you would just be frozen all the time. So we do have a lot of mental shortcuts to help us get through life. But it is important for us to notice when these mental shortcuts are being used for evil instead of for good. All right. So that's what we're going to unpack today, are these generalizations that we use and how we have to be very careful about it, because we'll end up adjusting and changing things that don't require it because of the actions of few. All right. So let's kind of dig into this a little bit. So, hey, welcome to Public Education Unfiltered. I am Brian J. Stevens, and I work with public schools all over the country. And during this time, especially in the last few months, as I've been meeting with a lot of elected officials about vouchers and school choice, I spent a lot of time listening. And I've been listening to parents. I've been to a lot of school boards, teachers, critics, and elected officials for sure. And one thing that keeps popping up is this habit of taking one story and turning it into a verdict of an entire group. Public schools are awful. Teachers are the problems. Kids today are hopeless. And I want to challenge this thinking, but I'm not going to do it with a lecture. I thought about really talking about some of the psychological studies around homogeneity effect. And look, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Homogeneity effect. Remember, I had a speech impediment as a kid. Public schools saved me. Thank you. I can talk, but I still mispronounce a lot of words. But homogeneity effect, as I thought about, do I do a lecture on that and do I read the studies? And I go, people are smart. People will get this, especially my listeners, right? Is that I think I should start off with examples that you can keep in your mind a little bit more readily than like a long form, like here's how the study is, here's how we know this affects, because I think that the examples will go like moments of epiphany, like little moments of enlightenment, and you'll go, oh, wow, that's, yes, that does make sense. And so I wanted to give you some stories that you can also have at the ready so that you can then, when people are doing this thing, when they're doing the out-group homogeneity effect and they're blaming an entire group, you'll see it, you'll recognize it, and then maybe you can educate them. Maybe you can help them not do it as readily, right? Because it just ain't true. All right, so let's talk about this, the all or nothing habit. And let's kind of start with a very basic pattern, and maybe we'll progress here over the next few minutes. Let's assume that something goes wrong. Test scores drop in a district, or there's a school that has a fight at the school, and it goes viral because, all the kids are recording it, right? And the reaction is always, public schools are failing us. The whole system is broken, right? The whole system. Not that like that one school cafeteria, like they need to fix their protocols there to stop with the fights or just, boys being boys sometimes or whatnot. Or the test scores drop in one district, right? Well, why did the test scores drop in one district? Does that make all schools bad? Does it even make this entire district bad? Or does it mean they just have one issue that they need to work on? Test scores. If you even think that test scores matter, okay? But is it a problem that we need to work on, or are all schools broken, right? And that's what we do. So I want you to notice a couple things. One, the people that make these all or nothing comments about an out group are typically not in the group. So in this case, the person saying this is almost never works in schools. Almost never. They're not a part of that group. So the schools and educators are out groups. So it's easy to, point fingers at them, so to speak, right? And they rarely name a specific school, a specific classroom, or an exact context, or they just have one very bold example that they just saw in the news, right? I mean, it's just, well, did you see that fight that went on over there at Stevens Elementary School? I mean, all public schools are, and they won't even say it that way, really. They don't say, see that fight? They'll say, man, every school's fighting, every kids bring guns to school. And it's all very generalization typically without very concrete examples. And then they jump straight from a very particular story, like Stevens Elementary had a fight in there and all public schools are the devil and they're awful and they're terrible. I mean, they jump from one little example to a universal conclusion. So that jump, we've gotten so used to it, it just feels normal. But we got to shake things up, man. We got to stop this. We're going to continue to blame the wrong. We're going to continue to blame instead of fix problems is really what I'm getting at. Okay, let's do with an example outside of the school space. Let's talk about doctors for a minute. Trusted source. We go to them. We want healing. We don't necessarily blame the doctors and the surgeons for healthcare in general, which is a national issue right now. But let's just talk about doctors. And let's assume that you hear a story of a doctor who commits malpractice, maybe a criminal act. Let's go with a criminal act, and they actually harm a patient, maybe even intentionally. Maybe they actually murder a patient. That too has happened in the United States of America, and that's happened for hundreds of years. I was thinking about back when my daughter and I were going on college tours. We were in Seattle, and we did one of those walk-in history tour things while we were out there, and they talked about this was in the mid 1800s, I think. I'll put it in quotes. Like doctor, she was a medical professional in the medical group. Her and her husband, they were doctors, back in the day, and they brought people there, did scientific experiments on it, and murdered a bunch of them. I mean, it was bad, right? Now, do we say that because I have that example in my head that all doctors are bad, all surgeons are unsafe? We don't. We don't do it for medical people. We recognize that there are tens of thousands of surgeons, and that the rules and systems, and we might say that the hospital's broken, or that the surgeon shouldn't be practiced. We don't say that doctors are broken. All doctors have given up. So, but when one school has a failure, we feel very comfortable blaming all public education is broken. Maybe it's because I might have to dig into this more. It could be that we need doctors throughout our entire lives, and we need doctors to take care of us. So maybe we don't want to finger point too much at the people that we, are the most vulnerable with. And in most cases with education, we're trying to protect the children. We're trying to protect the people that come after us, and maybe we can get it corrected for them. And if we blame all of public education, it's safer because we can make an adjustment to vouchers or school choice or whatever. I mean, I guess I just don't get, but I know we don't do it, right? I know that from an example, we don't blame all doctors for the misdeeds of one doctor, but we blame all teachers for the misdeed of one teacher, which is just as illogical. All right. So let's do another one. Let's flip the script again. Let's use reverse logic. Imagine a person in prison who generally turns their life around. And we love those stories. We love, in America, we love it. We love a person that was out of shape that's gotten in shape. We love a person that had an addiction and they've overcome that addiction, right? I mean, we just love, a story of redemption in America. And it feels good that somebody could turn their life around. So we like that, right? But imagine this person who generally turned their life around. They go through counseling, they get their degree, they mentor young inmates, they get out, they hold down a job, they raise a family, and they never re-offend, and they're awesome, and they're an awesome member of society. We don't say, well, that settles it. All criminals are good. All criminals have been rehabilitated. The criminal justice system is obviously working great now. It feels so counterintuitive to say that. Is that we get the example of one criminal that has been rehabilitated and is an awesome member of society, and we love that. Now all of a sudden we say the criminal justice system is perfect. The system works. It works for everyone. We love it. We just don't do that. Well, because it would be absurd. Right? One redeemed person does not redeem everyone. And we totally understand that because we don't make assumptions that are positive typically. We typically make assumptions that are negative. Now, let me briefly get into why this is, because it's no one's fault. You're not to be blamed for the fact that your mind typically goes into a protective mode. And it gets back into this whole fight, flight, which is what I learned as a young psychologist. Now it's fight, flight, fawn, freeze, and et cetera. And so what that basically means, in short, is that in times of danger, in times of safety violations, we'll call it, we have to do things to react to protect ourselves. And so this is an example I've used for years, but so if you ever hear me give a speech around fight or flight, you probably can hear this example. So sorry. Is that let's assume that it's back in the caveman times. It's 8,000 years ago, whatever, 10,000 years ago, and you got a spear out there, and you see a bush, and the bush is rustling. Well, do you think that butterflies are going to come up? Do you think, oh great, a bunny is over there, I'm going to have an easy meal, this is great? No, you would think there's a tiger behind it that's going to eat your face. So you either get ready to fight or you boogie, you flight, you get out of there. And you do that to protect yourself, because the unknown, if you assume the unknown is good and happy, you could die. If you assume that the unknown is bad, you can protect yourself even if it's not bad. So that's why we do it. And it makes sense why we do it, but you need to recognize it, okay? And you need to get others around you to recognize that you fill in these gaps of information with negative, dangerous stuff to protect yourself. So we don't say one criminal was good, so all criminals are great and criminal justice has been revolutionary fixed. We just don't do that. And so, that's the kind of the psychology behind it. But somehow, though, we are okay with the opposite. One failing student means all schools are failing. One bad teacher means all teachers are the problems. One viral fight means kids these days are out of control. And it's just like this grumpy old man syndrome. And I hope I don't get it one day, because I was getting older, kids. I'm getting older. And you're like, get off my yard. All kids are bad. And all these drivers are driving so fast. They never used to drive this fast. Yeah, they were always bad drivers, man. People were always bad drivers. Kids are bad when I was bad. When I was young, and they're bad now, and they're good now. It's not an all or nothing thing, but this reverse logic has got to make you, think about it, right? So let's do another one. Let's do a restaurant analogy. Yes, I do a lot of restaurant analogies. I like to think about food a lot, okay? I just do, man. I love to eat. And so let's assume you go to a restaurant. It's filthy. Your order's wrong. The service is terrible. And you walk out thinking, well, I'm not coming back here. I'm going to go on and be a Yelp reviewer too. And you might even tell your friends, don't go to this restaurant. But you don't say every restaurant in America is terrible. The entire food industry is a disaster. Chefs are lazy and do not care. It's I don't know why it seems like in these two analogies, the restaurant and the doctor, the medical profession, these are things that are personal for our upcoming future, right? So do we really want to attack all restaurants and then never go back out to restaurants again? We're going to go back out to restaurants. They're in our diet. They're in our existence typically, if not daily, weekly, monthly. You're going to be going to restaurants, but public education is an out group, isn't it? If you're not in that group, but maybe as a restaurant, I got to think about this. Maybe as a restaurant, we're part of the in group. Maybe restaurants are in our in group. And so that's why we don't attack all restaurants. But wait a minute. We do have a tendency to blame a chain of restaurants for the fallacies or the flaws of one in the chain, though, don't we? I had a bad experience at a Taco Bell when I was 18, and all Taco Bells are bad. Or we went to Humdinger's after a Christmas party this weekend, and we haven't been to Humdinger's in a long time. And I seem to recall I liked the previous Humdinger's, so we went to this Humdinger's. It wasn't as good. But I had a good memory of that group, of that in group, and I was in the in group of that restaurant. But yeah, we will blame one chain restaurant for the failings of one of the in a chain to all of them across the board, right? Because that's an in-group and out-group. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of processing this a little bit, but and in the medical profession, we think of that doctor as our doctor. So that's our in-group. It is true that we hate Congress. We hate the Senate, but we believe in our U.S. congressperson, but we don't believe in any of the others because that person's in our in-group. That's the person we voted for, right? And the out-group are all the others that are terrible. So in-groups and out-groups can be really amorphous. They're not just based on job or anything, but so when we talk about schools, is one school is completely different than every other school. I mean, there are 14,000 public school districts. There are somewhere around 100,000 actual schools, 4 million, give or take. I think about 3 million or so, 3 million teachers in public schools, about 4.5 million teachers in general. That's a lot of people. And you've never met all those teachers in all those classrooms. And you have no idea. And remember, I'm doing a train the trainer here for you, is when you're talking to somebody, you don't know what people are going up against in their own life, what they're facing. Is we get kind of a bum rap in Memphis, Tennessee for our school district. And I can't say it's perfect. I never would. I can't say that there's not better ways to do things. There are. I do think, though, that people that are not in the in group have a tendency to look at it and say, why aren't those kids doing better? Well, I don't think that they understand all the facets of what's going on in their daily lives. I mean, in Memphis, we have as many people that live in poverty as the entire city of Chattanooga, right? I mean, it's almost 200,000 people that live in poverty right now. And we did some mentoring for an elementary school. I mean, those kids were as likely to get hit up by a gang member on their way home or to have their power off as they were to have a meal for dinner. I mean, it was just brutal. And people were like, well, they need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. So what if they don't have any boots, man? I mean, our job is to educate them and try to find them boots, get them boots, and then teach them how to make boots and then grow boots and all those things. But people do come at life very differently and with different support mechanisms. I mean, I grew up poor, but overall pretty decent support system of my immediate family and my extended family. I mean, I could eat. I could find a meal, go to aunts and uncles' houses and sponge off of them while my mom was working. It always worked out. Some people don't have that. And I think that we need to open our minds up that some schools and some teachers are dealing with much more difficult issues than others. So just kind of keep that in mind as we keep kind of breaking this down. All right. So why do our brains do this, right? Why are we so quick to generalize the negative? And there's basically like 3 primary reasons. And again, I don't want to get too overly academic here, but we react to so number 1, we react to the stories that we see and hear. The quiet success stories, the kid who learns to read, the teacher that keeps a student from dropping out, those don't go viral. Typically, they don't go viral. But the fight in the hallway does. The scandal does, and the failure does. So that's what we're exposed to. And I stopped watching the news. I mean, I read a lot of news, but I don't like how news of any source is completely trying to shove me left or right. And there's an old adage in the media, which is if it bleeds, it leads, which means if there's blood involved, it's going to be a lead story. But if it's a nice story about a teacher that did a good job or a police officer that saved a kitten, man, people don't watch that. So we are, and it's not our, it is our fault. I don't know what we do about it, but society just dumps on us, on all of us, the negative. And so you just don't hear a lot of good stories about education until there's some sort of new education thing, right? Like a charter school comes up or a new way to do it, a STEM program or whatever. And then it gets some good news for a bit because it's the grass is always greener on the other side. So it gets a little bit of positive energy. And then it gets, then they'll start to get slammed too, because we watch the news to hear negative junk, negative garbage. And that's why I just can't do it. I mean, I haven't done it 15, 18 years. Like nightly news, morning news. People think I'm nuts, but I found some podcasts that are very neutral and flat and just like, it was like the BBC in like the 60s and 70s before I was born, but it was all very just, here are the facts, with no opinion of it so that you can gather your own opinion. But that's not what we get now. We get opinion pieces on everything, and it's typically very negative, and it's going to mess you up in your head if that's all you hear. So just remember that if all you do is hear negative stuff, it's not your fault, but that's what you will hear. You will become negative and fixated negatively on that topic. Okay. So that's one. Number 2, they're all the same bias. And this is the one that I've been dealing with my whole life. You have too, because in my former days, our sister company does government work and does issue campaigns and political campaigns and all kinds of like government relations type stuff. And what people will say is all elected officials are bad. Or in some cities, like the business community is terrible. The business community, as if all businesses are a one-celled organism. All elected officials are a one-celled organism. And I get it makes me not very fun at cocktail parties because I cannot stand these overgeneralizations of all elected officials are bad. All of them? Now look, I mean, see how it makes me not fun at a party? Because what I should be is, yeah, they're all bad. Let's all dump on everybody. Let's spend our time stirring the tea and talking smack. And it just drives me nuts. Because not all elected officials are bad. Not all people that work in government are bad. Actually, a vast majority of them are good. I'm going to prove it. I'm going to prove it to you. You're going to you're going to be mad at me right now when I give you this example. Think about the city that has the worst drivers. Think about the city that has the worst drivers. And in most cases, a majority of cases, you just thought of your own hometown. Because that's where you are. That's your proximity. That's what you see every day. So if we go back up to the very first, the story we can see analogy is that's what we see. We see the bad drivers around us all the time. And so, or some big city, the drivers in Atlanta are terrible. I'll drive so fast. We always have the worst drivers. Here's the reality. Almost every driver is a rock star. Almost every person that drives a car is an incredible driver. And I know what you're thinking, that I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I'm a nut person. But let's do the facts. Let's just do the science for a minute. I drove to work today. It was cold. I did not ride my bike. I drove my car. And I passed by 200, 250, 300 drivers. Didn't even notice one of them. Didn't have not one. I'll go home today and there will be one driver, that will cut me off. One. And I will be fixated on that SOB. I will be mad at that person. All drivers are bad. No, that driver is bad. But most drivers aren't. I know because it's not like bumper cars out there. I mean, we're going 30, 50, 70 miles an hour within 2 feet of a vehicle that weighs thousands of pounds with another person that is probably on their phone, drinking coffee, not paying attention, and we don't all just collide every day. That's amazing to me. That is I don't want to say it's a miracle, but it feels like a miracle. The fact that we can drive these big behemoth things and just hauling Tushy down the interstate, and we're not crashing left and right. Like, it's not bumper cars out the yang out there. It's amazing to me that we do that. It's amazing to me. And yeah, I ride bikes, and I had dozens and dozens of drivers pass me this weekend. One driver scared the bejeebies out of me, just terrified me. All drivers are bad. I'm going to get killed. You know, I mean, it might be smart for me to say, look, it might be one driver out of 500, but that driver could kill me on a bike, so I probably shouldn't be on the road as much, right? And I've started to actually do that, ride dirt a lot more, which is more fun anyway. But so we still should have the fight or flight mentality and be watchful for people and be safe, and don't drink your coffee, get off your phones, actually pay attention to the road. We'll all be a lot safer, okay? There's my disclaimer. But I do want you to recognize that we say all drivers are bad. No, they're not. If I got a clicker and went click, 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 click by every driver that passed us in a day, you're going to see it's hundreds and hundreds, no impact on you. That means they were a good driver. And it's wonderful. But we are going to fixate on that one bad driver. And then we're going to say, all drivers are bad. I mean, it's just so ludicrous and lazy to do that. But it is fun, I guess, to just talk about how bad drivers are. You know, I guess that's a social construct that makes me not fit into a lot of small talk at parties and stuff, because I just don't like that kind of stuff. All right. So okay, let's get to the third one, all right, is emotional simplicity. And this is, we've got to use things that make things simple, or the amount of information we get is just too great. So we have to find ways in our subconscious to really make things simple. So it's just simpler to say the system is broken, instead of, man, there are 5 specific indicators of actual things that we need to work on with this individual school and this individual district and this individual teacher, right? It's a lot simpler to say the system is broken, just big simplicity, than it is to say, what is happening in that particular family? What are the funding levels of this district compared to that district? And then you have to go a step further than just the funding levels, not just the taxpayer funding levels, but if you really want to get correct and you really want to actually be helpful, what are the funding levels of the individual contributors? And I mean the families. And I think about an example that I had years ago was we were working with a district, and I think because of poverty rates and things like that, they're around $16,000 per student was the way they got their funding. And the neighboring district was around 11 or 12 or something. I mean, it was much lower. And as a matter of fact, I think it was sub 10. I think it was like 9,000 a student. It was much lower. It was rural, didn't have the biggest tax base. But the one that had the $9,000, let's say, funding, was outperforming on these like test and graduation rates. Those were the two main indicators. I don't say I agree with those as the two main indicators. I think that they're not. I think that those are just simple indicators that are not really, they don't paint a great picture of everything. It's not clear, but they were doing better on standardized testing and higher graduation rates, as if that makes everybody smarter. Okay. Then the one that was funded almost twice as much, right? Almost twice as much. And they had lower test scores, and people were like, see, that was a bad system, and that school's broken, and they don't know what they're doing. Their teachers have given up. And I'm like, whoa. Do you, we'll call it school 9K. We'll just call it 9K for simple. Do you, mom, dad, at school 9K, do you ever take your kids to the zoo? Well, sure we do. We love our children. Do you ever read them a book? Well, of course we do. We're good. We read books to them. Great. If they had a problem, have you ever got them a tutor? Well, yeah, we've got them a tutor. Okay, great. You've ever been to a museum? Have you ever been inside a museum? Yes. Did you abandon the children, or did you like walk through and talk with them about some of the stuff? Well, we talk with them because we're good parents. Okay, great. So you augment the funding dollars. You supplement the funding dollars of the taxpayers with your own. And we did some math on this, and it was probably 25,000 that the average person in that district was funding through all these, we're going to go to Europe and we're going to show them Rome and the Colosseum and just expose them to all this crazy, awesome stuff, right? That was a very affluent, rich area, and they could afford to do that. So the value to the student was not $9K in education. It was $9K plus 20. So they were getting like $29,000 plus a stable home, whatever the value of that is. That's the whole picture of that student, right? Now flip it to District 17K or 16K, District 17K. They had a very impoverished community, lots of poverty, lots of I don't want to say like single parent homes. A lot of them weren't even by the parents. It was by the grandparents or like the aunts and uncles, right? So talk about like a not as stable of a home environment, right? Not near the resources to augment. And typically the value of education that student got was only what the public schools provided. So it was 17 compared to the 29, not 17 compared to the 9 in that case. So picture that for a second, right? And finally, because of a lot of one-on-one conversations, parents go, okay, that makes sense. I go, because the goal is to have an outstanding adult that contributes to society. And I was like, so if you want all the kids in District 17K over here to be good members of society, don't you think we ought to augment their education? Because that's all they get, where you can do all these other things. So shouldn't we take some of your funds? I know I'm not a socialist, okay? I am not. I'm a red-blooded American, okay? I'm a capitalist pig, and I believe in America, and I just want to be clear on that, man. In public education, though, our goal is not to support people through life, which is what, you could have in a communist country, right? Our job is to get them educated as well as possible. So we should be moving resources around to ensure that as many students as possible become productive members of society. And so these funding levels are important, but you have to look at the totality of the funding levels, not just this. Okay, so this emotional simplicity stuff drives me a little bit crazy if you haven't already figured that out. And complexity is terribly uncomfortable, right? I mean, blaming a whole group is a shortcut and it's easy. It feels clean. It feels decisive, even when it's inaccurate. Okay, so I think we kind of know how this hurts public schools, but let's get specific. So when people say that public schools are awful, it's not just a bad sentence. It has real consequences. And I need you to step up and end it. I need you, not all public schools are awful. We're not all one-celled organisms. All right. Every public school is different. Every hospital is different. Every accounting firm is different. Every restaurant's different. All right. Let's talk about individual actual schools and actual teachers, not just these big generalities. So I think that's what you say to people. And because if we allow it to go unchecked, if we allow blaming all schools as being awful to go unchecked, then we're going to have a lot of political ammunition to uncork. So if once we've convinced people that the whole thing is broken, it's easier to justify pulling funding, handing money to private vendors, or just pushing choice as a simplistic statement, which it's not choice. We don't really have a choice at all right now. Okay. We say we have choice, but we don't. It's a faux choice. It's a fake choice, right? And the other thing it does is it demoralizes the people in our in-group. It demoralizes the people we need most. So if you're a young person, you're thinking about teaching, and all you ever hear is schools are failing and teachers are the problem, you're not going to be excited to join that profession. We are going to lose our best and brightest, just like we did in police departments and all these other things, because when we're attacking the general norm, people want to stay away from those. We need great teachers, but what we say in society matters, and those people don't want to become teachers now because of it. All right? Because of the negative rhetoric, and we got to put an end to it. We've got to start at home, all right? So, I'm writing over here. I know I'm kind of pausing right now. I wanted to write some notes. I've got a speech. I've got a couple keynotes coming up for teachers that I'm fairly excited about, and I want to kind of talk about some of the subjects with them. So sorry, I'm writing a little bit of notes as we go. Okay, how else does it hurt public schools? Well, it erases parts of the truth that public schools are doing extraordinary work. I've seen it in schools in really incredibly challenging communities that are just outperforming expectations by miles. And those stories just get drowned out and by these big sweeping narratives. And so if we don't know about what's going right, we can't protect it. We can't say, don't mess with this. It's going right. They're exceeding expectations. They're doing great work over there. Let them be. But instead, because all public schools are terrible, and all teachers are, we have to go in there and change it for everybody, even the ones that are that's doing it right. Now you know why I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Now you know why I'm a little crazy, right? And if we also use this generality that the entire system is broken, it lets us off the hook. If the system is to blame, then we don't have to look at the role of parents, the role of voters and who they elect and what those elected representatives do to adjust, rightly or wrongly, school. It relieves you of your role as a community member. And, it also relieves you in your role about what you're willing to fund and even speak up and support and defend. Because if the system's broken, I don't have to defend these teachers. I don't have to defend this public school. Blame is so comforting because it points it away from our responsibility. Man, I'm still very agitated about this entire subject. And one of the things I've got to remember, and please remind me when you see me, is I don't need to get overly agitated about all this because I need to continue to educate. I need to continue to kind of meet people where they are and let them, this might be the first time they've ever heard this, let them learn as they go instead of being frustrated they've never been taught this. It's our job to educate. It's our job to teach. That is a self-reflection point for me, Brian, okay? Because, golly, it's agitating. It's just as agitating probably for me to generalize all people as being incompetent because they don't understand their biases. Yes, it is. So I'm doing the same thing. I need to stop it too. Okay, so let's bring this down. Let's bring this down to the classroom level. I want to give you as many anecdotes as possible. So let's think about this in terms of like one teacher, right? And I know the teacher has like 28 students in their class. Some are behind 2 or 3 grade levels in that class. Like there's a few kids that are just really behind on reading. And some are dealing with homelessness. Absolutely. Some are caring for younger siblings at home. Maybe they live with an older sibling. Like that's real too, right? And some are wrestling with anxiety, hunger, and violence in their neighborhood. Okay, so let's talk about what that teacher is juggling for a minute. They got to teach the subjects. Don't forget that. Like, it's so funny that we now expect teachers to be psychologists and police and parents and helpers. And they also have got to be, I don't know what the term is for, they got to be a grocer, right? They've got to go buy food and put it in their drawers out of their own pockets. They don't make a lot of money. They put food in their own, so they can give it to the kids that are hungry and can't think to eat. And they do that out of their own pockets. Okay, so now they got to feed the kids. They got to manage the classrooms. Now, don't forget the documentation. Don't forget all the bureaucracy, all the paperwork these teachers have got to deal with. And it's not the fault of the teachers they got to do all this paperwork. It's the fault of the legislators that are requiring them to do all this paperwork. Okay, so can we get rid of some of the bureaucracy? Maybe free this up? I know, subject for another day. Okay. This teacher is juggling testing, new mandates, their own professional development, right? Their own lives. And then they got to teach the kids. And to jump from the reality to teachers are failing our kids is not just unfair. It's lazy thinking, and it's really going to hurt society if you don't stop it. Now, I know you're not going to do it, but you know what I mean? If these outbound groups don't stop it, and it's our job to educate them. So how do we respond when someone says public schools are awful, right? Well, let me give you kind of a simple, practical response that is I wrote this one down because I knew I was going to get worked up about this, man. So I wrote this script down. Hold on, let me pull this up. Hold on. As I wrote this script down so I could give you kind of a narrative, little messaging points that don't make you go off the reservation too much like I will do, right? So they say public schools are awful. Public schools have let us down, whatever indication, something like that. Your response is, which school are you thinking about? And then you have to be quiet. Which school are you thinking about? Now, I've played this with this whole, all elected officials, Brad. Which elected official or which one specifically do you mean? Okay. Typically, they can't name it. And they'll follow up with, if they can't name it, which they typically won't, follow up with, well, what specifically happened that you're upset by? And they're going to say something, even if they give something specific about, well, in so-and-so city, a teacher got caught, stealing or doing something sexually inappropriate, which we've heard a few of those stories. And you say, well, what are those? What's going on in that community? And is that teacher like all the teachers in that community? Or is those bad test scores or that fight that you saw that went viral? Is that fight going on in every school in that community? What's going on? Like, dig into the meat of it a little bit. And then you can also say there's about 100,000 public schools in this country. And, wouldn't we see a lot more stories like this if they were all failing us, if they were all nightmares, if they were all falling apart? Now, again, it's not going to make you the hit of the cocktail party, right? Because people don't want to be questioned about their generalized false beliefs. Their false beliefs. But I'm going to beg you to. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and do that, because if you don't start correcting people in a nice, polite way, we're going to continue to get slammed. So I think that my action item here is we've got to start standing up for what's right. And what's right is not allowing generalized statements, this homogeneity effect, outgroup homogeneity effect, to generalize. So start recognizing it in your own life. And I hope that in this episode, I've kind of given you a new way to think and a new way to respond. Share it with a friend, a school board member, a relative who loves sweeping statements. At least have some fun over the holidays with it, right? And if you're an educator listening, no, you're not perfect, but you're also not bad because of what somebody else has done. And I want you to realize that what you're doing is important. It matters, and we need you. Like, we need you. And I am sorry that laziness and groupthink and this homogeneity effect all cause massive stress and anxiety for a lot of teachers and people that want to educate our kids. I know what you're doing matters. I know that you're not doing it for the money. I know you're doing it because it's meaningful, and it is. And I want us to create our own in-group to start to, or continue to, stand up and say enough's enough, that we're not going to tolerate this broadcast attacks on all educators and these generalizations that harm public education. Instead, we're going to educate them, right? By asking them specifically, what do you mean? And maybe use some of these other examples I've given you today to maybe open their eyes. And if you can open up somebody's eyes, I mean, there's 4 million teachers. There's another 7 to 8 million generalized staff. We have an army of 10, 12 million people out there. And if we all say this and we get it to one person, that now we got an army of 20, right? And they say to one person, we got an army of 40. And I think we got to baby step this in of standing up that public education does rock. Teachers give their heart and soul, and we're not going to let the misdeeds of one penalize the entire. Hope this helps. I'm out there fighting for you, and I appreciate you being on the team. I really do. Thanks a lot, everybody.